Hello, 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 everybody.
Well, gentlemen, welcome to We Got Balls.
We're back for another one, Scott. Bare ass, balls, bulges, and biceps hanging out today on the second edition of Safe Male Nudity. For those of you who tuned in, and there's a ton of you, we had 12,000 and counting, plus and counting, tune into that episode. So we hope this one is enjoyable for you as well. If you haven't seen part one, go back and watch it and come back and check this one out. It's going to be great.
So come get naked with us, fellas, in a safe way. We welcome you. We welcome your nudity.
And so I had a therapist friend of mine that I used to do trips with, and he used to say, getting buck naked when you would get emotional with somebody and vulnerable. He said, let's get buck naked together.
Where does the term buck naked come from? Aren't like all bucks naked anyway? Isn't that their natural state?
I don't know. Somebody put that in the chat if you know where it is. What is the term buck naked? How does that show up?
Please go Google that or Perplexity that or whatever. But we want to know where buck naked comes from. So
whatever it is. Greg's in the house. Hey, from Atlanta, Greg.
It sounds very masculine, doesn't it? Buck.
It sounds very masculine. Very, very
horny.
That's
what we should have called this episode. We should call this Buck Naked.
Well, we'll go back and retitle. It'll be all right. What's up, Greg? How's it going? Orson in the house. Wilhelm, Dewey from the ATL. Michael Moody from Down Under.
Guten Morgen.
What did you just? You said it's Australia, not Germany.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Good night, mate.
Oh, what's up? Pup Jolt from Phoenix, Arizona. Glad you're here. Ralph is here as well. Let's see. We got Stav. Hello. Warren. All the guys checking in. Carrie's in San Jose, California. Carrie used to be in North Carolina. He's on the left coast now. So doing some training. Jamie's here. David Long. Everybody's in the house for a great conversation on buck naked. We've retitled the episode live and in person. Don't tell us we don't do our research and planning. Sometimes think magic just happens.
We plan and in real time, folks. You don't get any podcasts like this out there.
That's right. And smash that like button if you're already on. Promote this to YouTube. Let's get the content out there for the guys to be able to connect with. We had a great comment from our friend Ralph in last week's episode. He says this, Scott. He says, this idea of safe male nudity is part of my desire to be accepted as one of the boys. One of the boys. When you hear a statement like that, very vulnerable, very real, where does that take you?
It takes me to the middle school showers after football practice and being one of the boys. Taking off my pads and my uniform and getting in there naked, showering, toweling off, getting dressed again, feeling like one of the guys. Yeah, I get that feeling.
So as you talk about that, I hear just a real belonging, a real sense of that there is, I'm in a place where I can be seen for everything that I am, and I don't have to feel any shame. I don't have to feel like I don't fit in. I'm just connected.
Yeah.
I'm enveloped, not in an unsafe way, but in a totally mutual and kind way. And that experience is something that, a lot of guys just have not had growing up. And it starts at home, right, in the experience with dad. And at other times, it moves into experiences with peers. And then when you're older, where do you find that belonging? Where do you find that experience of being one of the boys in that context? I mean, that's the elusive question that we're in right now. And we'll get to that later in the episode.
So Wilhelm says that as a Native American man, buck was a derogatory term referring to natives. Did not know that. So Native men who wore only a loincloth and nothing else or completely naked were buck naked. All right, that's interesting. I also do know from a black friend of mine that buck breaking was something that was done on plantations, which is a very cruel and dehumanizing act where the top male slave would be brought out in front of everybody on the plantation, his wife, his children, all the other slaves. He would be stripped naked, bent over a hitching post, and sodomized with a broomstick in front of everybody, and that's called buck breaking. So there is some real racial harm, abuse that's been done around that particular phrase now that we think about it. So that makes me sad starting off here because
Yeah.
it seemed like a
Well, you
very
went down
happy
real fast,
term.
Scott.
Yeah. Oh my God. We didn't know we were going down this road, but
We did not. Dewey
Buck,
says,
Buck.
yeah, read Dewey's
Yeah.
comment.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Buck refers to a young buck like a young person whose skin is pale and smooth like buckskin. I think it first referred to you. I think first referred to you in your 20s. Not that I was there to mind you. I don't know what he's saying with that last comment.
Well,
But
I was
yeah,
kind of a buck in my 20s.
where
Didn't
are
have
you?
any hair on my chest until I was 30, and now I look like a gorilla. So it can happen. You
Okay,
can hold out hope if you want to be a hairy
they're
dude.
still there. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a great experience shared from Tent Pitcher last week in the video that we did. It says, as a kid, my family went to an amusement park on a lake, and my dad and I were swimming. First time I was ever in that situation. I thought it was cool. Guys laughing and talking in various states of undress. It felt like a special club. I never had any anxiety in that kind of situation. And there you go.
Yeah.
So you have mutual nudity, mutual vulnerability, and no anxiety. Man, that's a crazy experience to imagine. Is that men can just be together and free without having all the baggage of what culture wants to put on them.
So somebody's saying the sound is really messed up on this podcast. It sounds good to us, dudes. So sorry. We if anybody else can comment on what you're experiencing sound wise, maybe it's just you, Eddie 1284, but um we did a
And if
sound
it's on
check
our
before
end, we'll
that.
do everything we can to fix it. So that's all we can do.
What you just said though, that experience that was talked about, the guy going to the amusement park with his dad, like one of the best experiences in my growing up years was I wanted to learn how to scuba dive. And we
Mm,
lived in this small town called Ottawa, Iowa, that was 30 miles from Sioux City, which was the biggest town. And my dad would occasionally, I think I've told the story. My dad did, like, sometimes he was there, sometimes he was not there. Sometimes he was too much there, meaning he would be very aggressive and violent with me.
mm,
But this is one of the cases where my dad was really there and he heard my desires and my longings to be, to get certified as a scuba diver. So in when I was 16, during that winter of my 16th year, we would drive up to Sioux City and we would go to the YMCA and we took our scuba diving lessons there. And we both got certified as scuba divers when I was 16 years old. And then as adults, we've continued to dive. Me, my brother, and my dad go on dive trips and stuff like that from time to time. I think my dad's probably too old to dive now. He's like 83. So I don't think he's actually 84. I don't think he's going to be diving anymore, but those were really good times. But particularly as a 16-year-old, like we would dive and then we'd come up and shower with all the guys. And there was only guys in our group that I recall. I don't think there were any ladies. And it was all of us that were training together, stripping off naked. And I felt like a man as a 16-year-old, even though I didn't have any hair on my other than my pubes and my legs, but I was in there with other guys showering and I felt like one of the men. And that was a really great time of bonding with my dad. Now, I think it came a little late in my life
mm,
at 16, but I still want to honor my dad for seeing me, seeing a real something that made me come alive because I was always into the ocean and sharks and dolphins and seashells and all that stuff that's in the ocean. I just was always fascinated with the ocean. And so I wanted to get down in there, personally. And my dad saw that and he honored that. And part of being naked with him and those other men was a really uh, enlivening experience. And yeah, so I have really fond memories of that too. So I could say, yeah, I got
yeah.
that goodness from my dad in that experience.
Wish I could say the same. Don't have those memories with my dad, but I do have positive memories with other guys who were mutual and kind with me. And it was more in my teen years where I was able to be in safe spaces with other guys in locker rooms and showers and just be a guy. And there was really no experience of being preyed upon or objectified or seen as something that was other, and everybody was just there to get clean or there to change or there to connect. And so it was really a mutual space. And there's a bunch of comments in last week's episode about the YMCA not being what it used to be. Now, somebody said about it, it's become more family friendly, family oriented, and less oriented towards men and women. You have the men's room and the locker room, and you're in the women's locker room, and you're trying to create safe spaces for men and women individually, instead of this whole family dynamic that seems to be playing out now, where you're trying to make it a family place. And so, obviously, when you got young kids in the locker room, uh, some would say that there's you need to cover up, but I don't think that's true. I think you and I would argue that being naked in a male locker room for boys is just as healthy as for older men, so they can
Oh,
see, hey.
I think it's totally healthy and totally necessary, right? Because the little guys need to see what a male body looks like when it's fully developed,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to understand that they're going to grow into that over time, and it's okay to be in the body they're in now, and this is what an adult male body looks like. And you're going to see an array of that. You're going to see some guys are fat, some guys are skinny, some guys have big penises, some guys don't, some are hairy, some are not hairy. So you're going to see that it's normal to be in this full range of what it means to be a man in your body, and to belong in that space however you are is you're welcome and you're part of this, guys. And that's what I tried to give my sons growing up. um, I think that was really well developed in my sons, because they would shower with me, or we would go to the water park and we'd be in the same changing stall together and all that stuff. And to this day, my youngest son is 29, my oldest son is 36, I think. And when I'm in the shower, they'll come, getting out and toweling off, and or sitting there shaving at the sink naked. They'll come in and have a conversation with me. They don't think anything of it. Like they don't even knock because I'm a man. Like they know they're welcome in that space.
Mm.
And it's always been a very um, safe place for them to be in that space with me. Nothing weird or awkward about it. So
So Jack and Buff had a comment on the last video. He said, "Why are we taught to be ashamed of our bodies? The human body in all shapes and sizes and colors are beautiful in their own way." Why do you think there is this like natural fear of being seen in a safe space, naked and vulnerable?
I think it comes from um, I think it comes from our stories. Um, Again, I'm struck by how many guys I talk to on a week to week basis that when I ask them the question, what was the thing that dangles between your legs? The two round objects and the long cylindrical object. What was that called growing up? And how many guys will say, we didn't have a name for it?
Mm,
Well, Chris, if you don't have a name for your penis and your testicles, how can you possibly make sense out of them in the context of reality? Like,
yep,
why do we have no problem calling this a hand? Where's my hand? There.
right there. Yep.
This is a hand. But the one of the more beautiful and important parts of my body that creates new little human beings, we're ashamed to even name what that is.
Mm,
There's something, I think there's something evil about that. Like, not that the parents are evil, but that in the culture or just the system of the world, we can't even name a penis, which in Latin, penis means tail. That's all it means.
front
So,
tail. I got a front tail.
and then you have a split tail with a vagina.
That's
But
right.
and
Whatever you say.
vagina
That's it.
means sheath. Um, but so why is that so um, disruptive to people to say that is a penis? Those are your testicles. That's your pubic hair. When your penis gets hard, that's called an erection. And to honor the goodness of how our bodies were created, to function, not just biologically, but from a relational standpoint, from a pleasure standpoint, and just to honor the goodness of our bodies. I don't. I think it's evil. Like there is a dark, malevolent force at work in the world that wants to make us ashamed of our bodies and especially the most beautiful parts of our bodies. So,
And Michael Moody says, because we're taught to be secret, hence shame and fear. I think you're right. There, the three keys for shame are silence, secrecy, and judgment. And so when you have a silence, you don't have the language that you need around your body. Everything is, keep that hidden. Don't cover that up. And then when you do display that, and I mean, think about the innocence of children. I remember when my kids were young and they'd run around naked. And I can only imagine how many people grew up and they had that experience. And instead of someone's being playful with them and say, "Hey, what you doing? Are you having fun?" Say, "Why are you running around naked? You need to go put some clothes on." That's that kind of judgment, that kind of condemnation puts in a little person's body, a young boy or young girl's body, this experience of there's something wrong with me without my clothes on. And so I'm not gonna go out and expose myself anymore because I don't want to be condemned. I don't want to be judged.
well, yeah, but so at the same time, though, you don't want the little guys running around twirling their penises in the living room at the Thanksgiving dinner.
Very
So,
true.
right, there
That's called
has to be
containment, Scott. We practice that
that
all the
right.
time.
That's exactly
How
right.
do you help a child contain without shame, right?
So my granddaughter is 9 now. She's entering into puberty. She's got breast buds and she loves to be naked. And I don't want to take away her love of her body or nudity because she loves to just strip down and get in the shower and then run around the house. But because she's going into puberty, I'm sensitive to protecting her.
Mm-hmm.
And but which is, by the way, one of the reasons why you want to teach your children early and often the name of their body parts is because abusers take advantage of the fact that most parents do that. So when you're touched in a sexual way, if you don't know the language for the body parts they touch, the correct language, you just describe it as he touched me somewhere. You don't say specifically what he does. It really makes children more susceptible to harm. You're actually
It does.
protecting
Well,
them.
and when you have that conversation, what you do is you give them permission to own that as their own and to be able
That's
to
right.
communicate what's really going on. And you say, this is what this is called. This is your penis. These are your testicles. This is your anus. These are your, if it's a girl, these are your breasts. This is your chest. All this is your body, and you have the responsibility and the opportunity to keep it safe. And if someone touches you in a way that makes you feel unsafe, then you can talk about that. And I want to hear anytime someone does that. I don't want that to happen for you. I want you to
And
feel
you
safe
will
and natural in
not
your
get
body.
in trouble if somebody
Exactly.
does that to you.
Yep.
Like you come to us and talk to us about that, right? That is your
Yep.
property. But so where was I going? Oh, so she runs around and I will just say to her, honey, you got a beautiful body. We love your body. God loves your body. He made it beautiful and glorious. But you're getting to that point in age where you're developing into a woman's body and you need to kind of cover that up just to be safe for yourself and not to get other people to shame you or put you down for that. So please go put a towel in, right. So I'm trying to honor her love for being free and naked, and she's a very sexual child. Like there's nothing wrong with loving your body. There's nothing wrong with getting a massage and going, that feels so good. I love
Mm-hmm.
being touched on my back. And as
Mm-hmm.
a child,
Exactly.
enjoying that and blessing the pleasure of that. And yet you also want to contain that for them and teach them to put some guardrails up on them so
Mm-hmm.
they don't get harmed in that. And that can be done without shaming somebody, right? That can be
Yep.
done gently, kindly, um, with no sense of shame about the goodness of our bodies. So,
Agreed. Agreed. And I think, Dewey says it comes from judgment from others and society to define beauty for us. I think a great comment from last time we talked, that somebody talked about, was weight problems can be inhibiting. Jim Arami said that. And I think when we talk about safe male spaces, you alluded to it, you need to see the body in all its forms, in its, immature, undeveloped form, in its fully developed, mature form, and then in its aged and wrinkly form. I mean, there's no body that stays the same. I mean, you sound good, you look good for a season. Everybody has the height of their physical fitness, and then there's a decline, and there's nothing we can do about that. It's not ever going to stay the same. People have been
I mean,
trying to fight father time for eternity, and they're defeated every time. So,
Yes,
what is about
self.
that variety that we need?
I mean, we need to see that it's normal for a body
Mm-hmm.
to age. We need to see that it's part of life in this world where things don't stay the same, and there's different kinds of beauty. You know, there's a gray beard which has a beauty to it, and there's the full filled in normal colored beard that has a beauty to it as well, and there's a clean shaven. Like, there's all kinds of ways that we can display the beauty that God created us to possess in our bodies. And you know, wherever you are is where you need to learn to just start honoring the goodness of your body and accepting that, because that acceptance actually gives you the ability to change. There are things I can change. I can lose weight, but I can't become hairier if I'm smooth, and I can shave myself all the time if I'm hairy and try to look smooth, but it's exhausting, frankly.
Yes, it is.
I can't make my penis bigger or smaller. I can't, within limits, I can work to get a six pack, but it's probably not going to be maintainable at my age. So why bother? Because I'm on the downhill slope of that. So what what can I do now to be the best possible self that I am at 63, and to be healthy?
Mm.
Right. The goal is to be healthy. I don't think it's to be a cover model, but that's my
Well, and
feelings.
that's the idea is what is health looks different for different people. So, I mean, there's all kinds of people out in the world that we need to see that. And I think the experience that other people have had is, and many guys referenced this in the comments, was having an experience of being accepted by someone just as they are. I don't have to put on any facade. I don't have to perform. I just get to be accepted for my body and for me, just who I am, and that's tremendously impactful and healing. Um, you know, that's what we aim for in our coaching, in our groups, and our retreats. But this is kind of taking it to another level when it comes to mutual nudity.
Mm-hmm. Um, Dewdrop 404 says Adam and Eve covered themselves and hid because their disobedience introduced shame, guilt, and fear into their experience. Right. And it was particular around their nudity. So the conversation um, that God has with them about that is, who told you you were naked? Like,
Mm,
what's wrong with being naked? And there is a sense in which the freedom that they were enjoying prior to eating the forbidden fruit, so to speak, is stripped away as they realize their vulnerability and the fact that they are actually naked. Like, they were completely unaware of that, which is, by the way, what my experience is like going to the Korean spa, which I'm doing on Friday with a couple friends. Looking forward to
nice.
that. You go in there, you take off all your clothes, and you realize the other guys you're going with are naked for about 3 seconds, and then it just all fades away in the background, and you just enjoy the day together, relaxing. I think we're supposed to live in that state of naked and unashamed, but it is our shame about our vulnerability and our exposure that actually is the core. It's not the nudity per se; it's what the nudity represents. I'm exposed, right? I'm vulnerable. I can be seen with every flaw in a way that I can't cover up in this state, and that feels very unsafe to a lot of us because uh, what shame does is try to disorganize the safety of those original primordial, relationships between God, self, and others. And
Mm,
our goal is to kind of get back to that. So, what are some ways that we can do this? I think mutual male nudity in a safe way is one of those experiences. Like, whereas if it's occurring in an environment where sexuality is possible, then it can introduce shame into that experience, and then you're back where you started from, where you're not any better off really out of the experience.
well
So,
said. Um, Ty Lakeland put in the comments last week, what are the positives of safe male nudity? You get to see what real men look like. Short, tall, fat, skinny, hairy, hairless, microphallus, third leg phallus, thick like a Coke can phallus, skinny like a pencil phallus, cut, uncut. It's a way not to fall into the insta model idea of what men should or should not look like.
Mm,
And that's very well said.
yeah.
Because that's the idea of, and then when you think about that, you can't think your way into that level of acceptance and experience. You have to go through it, and you have to have that experience for yourself. You have to come to a place where you can be vulnerable and be connected with other guys in a real way. I mean, that's when we do that, the exercises that we do, and they're not nudity based, but it is an embodiment of that acceptance that really makes the change, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. And I think to me, that's what like the Korean spa or other safe male nude spaces represent as an embodied way to be with other guys and to feel like I belong with you. And yet nothing is required me of me in the process of belonging. Whereby if I'm sexting with other people, whether it's males or females, or I'm on a hookup app or I'm going to hook up, it's going to be all about whether I'm accepted based on my physical appearance, my penis size, my hairiness, or my smooth. It's all about taking those things that we say create a lot of shame for us or that we're trying to overcome, and actually, using those to be objectified. And is that really going to help in the long run? And I think the answer is no. It's not a very healing experience to know that I'm being objectified around those qualities of me that make me be seen as a masculine man. And yet, what if I didn't have those qualities? Would you then accept me and still want me to belong and still want to be with me?
Mm,
Right? Who wants to know that the criteria for me belonging is have a big dick or to have a hairy body or to look a certain way? Like,
yeah,
isn't that the system we're trying to get out of?
I would agree, but I think a lot of people assume that that's the way culture sees us, or that other people see us. So,
Well, let me say this. I think it's the easy way to get acceptance, affirmation, approval, belonging, affiliation, but I don't think it's enduring. So when you belong on the basis of that performative, you check these boxes.
mhm.
Are you really belonging?
No,
Really? Really?
you're being an object for someone to consume.
Yeah.
That's not
And
belonging.
so that's why, we're working with guys that identify as gay, guys that identify as same-sex attracted, guys that identify as bi, guys that identify as straight. It doesn't matter who you are. We're going to accept you where you are and as you are. And the criteria for you belonging is to be a man who wants to belong. That's it.
Hmm. That's it.
A man
Show up.
who's looking for a way to have relational, interpersonal belonging with other guys that doesn't require anything of you. And I'm sorry this is going off because I have tried to shut this stupid thing off. And for some reason,
Just ignore it and move on. So, what do
I've
we do?
I've answered the call and then hung up on the call.
Well, there's several points that different people have made around why is it that we don't have these safe male spaces. I blame this lack of male nudity as a result of phone cameras and tiny cameras. When I was young, you would see other male penises, testicles, and pubes, and it was only recorded in your memory. And now I think there's the fear in locker rooms in different places that you got all these recording devices. So if I'm naked, somebody might take a picture of me, and so let's get rid of that so we don't have to worry about that liability and that danger.
So
You buy it?
can we could we agree on this that I think the reasons are complex because I think we got into this last week
We did.
and I made it seem like it was one thing and it's not one thing, it's a lot of things.
Yep.
I think that's part of it. I think camera phones have made people afraid of that. And by the way, that's happened.
Yeah.
It is called um, revenge porn. It's a felony. You can't take
Hmm.
pictures of somebody naked without their consent and post them online. And if you're taking pictures, it's still breaking the law.
Yes.
Um, so I think there's that. I think there's the kind of the objectification and violation of other people that can occur by taking pictures. It can occur by cruising other people. That like if you're cruising for sex in a public locker room, um, are you really taking into consideration what everybody else in there feels about themselves? Like, are there not other places to do that that might be more in line with you finding connection and sexual hookups? And I think it's not really, unless it's kind of like a gay bathhouse or something like that, where it's kind of assumed, yeah, we're all going to come together here to have sex. But the LA Fitness locker room, I don't think it's necessarily assumed that that's occurring for everybody in there. So
Yeah. I had a comment from Wild at the Heart Oz said a big problem is men who cruise locker rooms. He used to be a gym manager and dealt with complaints on a daily basis. We ended up removing the sauna from the men's locker room and put in stalls. He currently plays semi-professional rugby, and our safe nude space is alive and well in our private facility. It's a shame that some have ruined this for many men.
yeah,
So
I
there you
think
go.
that is sad.
Yeah, it
I
is
think it
sad.
is sad. Um, you know, um, so, and I think then just the general shame about, am I going to get an erection, can be part of it. If this is not an experience that I've had, or I've had this experience and I do tend to get aroused in this setting, then what happens if I just get erection, but I'm not there to cruise anybody too?
Mm.
Like that's problematic. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can't really help that. And then the other part of the equation, I think, is what if I've had really harmful experiences when I've been naked in the locker room growing up and I was mocked for my penis size or my body or my maturity level. Those are some of the top things off the top of my head that I can think of. I was just reading that thing to you from what was that guy's name, Mac?
We'll have to go come back to it because it's a whole another episode to cover. So
It is another episode, but the
yeah,
point I was going to make about what he
yeah.
said was what people said they were attracted to in other people, and then what they were actually attracted to. And so much
Mac
of
and
what people,
Murphy, Mac and
Mac and
Murphy.
Murphy,
Yeah.
so much of what people are actually attracted to neurobiologically is how they smell, what they look like, how sexy they are. And so the reality is we don't want to be honest about what it is about other people that arouse us, but those physical attributes that we find to be beautiful and attractive are actually a big part of what attracts us and arouses us about another person. And I think there's some of that too. Is like I'm going to a locker room to see how I compare to other men, to how I compete with them. Like who is and Mac Murphy also does a lot of research on muscularity and who's attracted by muscles. It's men that are attracted by other men's muscles.
100%. Women
It's
could care
not women.
less. They prefer the
No,
dad
it's
bod.
actually it's not that women could care less. They're actually turned off by a man that's muscular.
Yes, they are. Well, it's a threat. I mean, you think about it. A truly muscular man is probably more aggressive and more hostile than someone who's kind of, they're fit and they're healthy, but they get a little curves in here and there. So
Well, women also tend to see that a guy is vain. Like he
yeah,
spends all this time building up his body. So how much time does he have left to pay attention to me?
very true.
And then the other part of it is the penis size thing is most women, and this was a really, I think we talk about this last week where they lined up models of penis sizes and had women pick the shortest size and the largest size they would
We've talked
prefer.
about it before,
And
not last week, but it's been in a previous
and
episode.
then, okay, and then what was the ideal size? And women always picked an ideal size that was bigger than the one they have ever been with.
Yes,
And yet,
right.
but women do not actually like a big penis
Yeah.
because it hurts to have your cervix pounded by a large penis. And so there's all these myths and these ideas that we have about our bodies that get kind of fed into this culturally. Let me ask you this. Does the culture lean into the idea that a guy has to have a big penis to be a real man and please a woman?
I think that that's the ideal, but I think when they get down to the reality of it, they understand that average is enough, and I think this fantasy of big penis size is truly fed by the pornification of the culture.
That's my point. So
Yeah.
it's not really, it's popular culture that leans into that, right? It's not your average person. And in fact, he had a great episode on penis size, and penis size is much smaller than we think it is. Here it is. Uh, men estimate their size by about Men overestimate their size by about 21%, which basically means when a man tells you his penis size, he's actually an inch less than he says he is. But the average measurement from the meta-analysis of a number of different penis size studies is the average erect penis is 5.16 inches long, and 6.3 inches is in the 95th percentile, which means if you have a 6.3-inch penis, you are the top dog in a room
Top
of 100 dudes.
10%, baby. Top 10%.
Yeah. And so, and the average circumference is 4.59 inches in circumference. So again, everybody has an idea that, well, a big, thick penis is what everybody wants. But in reality, women don't want that. Men want that because they think women want that. And other men tell them that. And so everybody is in this echo chamber of unreality when, penises over 6 inches are extraordinarily rare. So,
This turned into a penis episode, Scott. We went from buck
well,
naked.
you can't be naked without talking about the penis. So,
That's true. That's true. Everybody's there.
um,
RMC says whether a bar, locker room, or other public spaces, there's a decorum that is respectful and needed. There's a way to appropriately share interest or curiosity, but it is learned and mutual. So, I mean, I think that's really a good point. Well said.
I agree. I agree with that.
And Warren says, and Warren had a great question earlier. We'll get back to in just a second. Very well said, Scott. Inappropriate behavior in locker rooms are part of the problem, admittedly, by some men or men with SSA. And I think that's, you're trying to find a place to make a connection, and you're just there naked with other men, and it's kind of like, okay, maybe I can shoot my shot and see what happens. And
I mean, I've had that happen. I've had that happen to me in the last 5 years. I was working out with my friend Jordan a couple of years ago at our my very high end gym,
it's a nice
and there
gym.
was this dude, and the dude was across from me in the showers. Now the showers have frosted glass, but he saw me going into the shower, and this guy came in there and he started masturbating. And I'd seen him before, and I knew he was checking me out. You know how they get that checking
Yeah.
out feeling, like
Yeah.
I catch him looking at me, like we know when other people are looking
Mm.
at us, even from behind, and you turn around and you catch him looking at you, and you're like, and so when I was getting out of the shower, he was peeking through the crack between the glass and trying to check me out. And I just wanted to say, bro, I mean, come on, please. I didn't want to shame him, but I wanted to just invite him to, could we just kind of honor one another here in this space and not use this as a way to gratify your own personal sexual desires at this particular moment? Like, I'm not here to do that. So
Keep it safe. Keep it safe. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. I think that's pretty much about it from well, here's a question from Andrew Life Blurbs. What if you want to have this kind of safe nude male experience, but you don't think your friends will be up for it and you can't afford a retreat? What's a guy going to do when he's trying to have this safe male nudity experience and he feels all alone and doesn't feel like he can get the support that he needs to make it happen?
Well, just to be clear, we don't offer it at our retreats, but there are places where you can get that. Brothers Road does a retreat called Journey Beyond that's actually accepting applications right now. You have to have done some work with them to actually qualify for that, like gone to Journey into Manhood or Journey Continues or The New Man, which is for general men. But there is some nudity involved in that. New Warriors Project does nudity, and I'm missing one, right? Oh, we featured Thomas Wildman on here, Fairman. So there are kind of professional experiences where you can get this, but they're rare. And I think the best bet is a group of friends, to be honest with you. And what I think that requires then is a great degree of safety. You have to feel safe enough with those guys. They have to know your story to know why this would be important to you. And they have to feel safe with you in order to do that. But to me, the risk was worth the reward. So when I, like Luke was one of the first guys that I actually voiced this to, and he'd never really been naked with a lot of guys other than on his baseball team and stuff. And he ended up doing it and loved it. And it's been a part of our interactions. We've gone, skinny dipping in the pool and gone to the Korean spa and stuff like that. And it's completely safe. I did it with my friend Jordan too. And it's been rewarding with those guys where I can create that level of safety over time to be able to express my needs. So I think it's worth kind of leaning into that aspect of the relationship and letting your needs be known to them. And you got to be willing to take whatever their response may be. But if they're safe, they're not going to be like, oh God, no, what are you, gay or something for wanting to be gay with me? I think like, Jordan got naked with me several years ago in the locker room at my Lifetime Fitness. But after that, I've invited him to go to the Korean spa. And he's like, no, it's not really for me. And I'm like, no problem. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because I know he's been willing to do it with me in the past. And that kind of scratched the itch for me. And I don't feel rejected by him when he says that. It's just not his bag of tea. So that's fine. So I think you have to be willing to take a risk. And the risk is worth the reward.
And I think that risk is part of the work for every man to be learn to be vulnerable on some level, whether it's emotionally vulnerable, whether it's vulnerable in your story, whether it's vulnerable relationally, or vulnerable physically with being naked with other men. I mean, that's not a high priority for most guys is to become vulnerable with other men. So,
Yeah.
um,
One of the guys asked Barry Mace 3153, do guys talk circumcision pros and cons? I mean, circumcision is a part of this equation, right? Especially
yep.
like in a city like Houston, we have a lot of Hispanic males who have never been circumcised. So you're going to have friendships with guys that are uncircumcised. I'm circumcised. That's just part of the equation and having a conversation about it. If you're interested in the topic and other guys are interested, it should be, again, just an invitation to be curious with one another and not make anybody feel ostracized or, awkward or stand out because they're not circumcised or because they are circumcised. But yeah, of course we should be able to talk to one another. Like, what is it? How do you think a circumcised penis is different from an uncircumcised penis? How would I know? Yeah,
I
I
got what
don't
I
know.
got. I can't really compare. I can look and touch and see, hey, what is this difference? But I think there's some guys, and I think that that's a real wound when they feel like I wanted to be uncircumcised, and my mom or somebody decided for me to be circumcised, and there's a lot of bitterness around that, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do how do you? I mean, they've got this foreskin restoration process that people try to reverse that, and it is possible for some guys. It just takes a long time and it's a lot of work to do. So again, I go back to the point you just made, which is it is what it is. You are what you are. Now, if you're uncircumcised, you can change that. But man, that's painful as an adult. I don't know if I want to go through that process, and vice versa. You can try to restore that foreskin, but that's also painful. So we're back to this acceptance thing. Can I accept who I am and where I am and see where it takes me?
Yeah, and my grandson is uncircumcised. My son didn't want to circumcise. My son's circumcised. I'm circumcised. My dad is uncircumcised. So here we are in the same family. I'm like,
Yeah, you got
why
four
did you circumcise
generations,
us?
and you go hood, no hood, no hood, hood. So
And then my other grandson is circumcised. So
yeah,
those two, when they get together and shower together or go to the swimming pool and get naked with me or whatever, they're going to go, why do you have that covering over your penis? And
that's right. They're all there. So here's a question from Warren. Scott, does your father have an opinion about the work you do, such as here? And this would go for both of our dads, I guess.
I think my dad is actually very delighted in what I do and how I help men. And yeah, they were here over Thanksgiving, and we actually had some really intimate talks for the first time about the first instance of my sexual abuse. And I had never told my parents about it. And my dad asked me very curiously, not in a judgmental or accusatory way, "Oh, why didn't you feel safe telling us about that?" And I
Mm,
said, "I didn't feel safe around you." And he actually wrote me a beautiful text afterwards and said, "I can see." My dad had two experiences with older men preying on his brother and other neighborhood boys when he was growing up, and they were very unwelcome experiences that were very harmful. And my dad was involved with my grandpa in basically running these older men that were preying on these younger boys out of their small town. And it made a big impression on my dad. And so he did have homophobia because he had a reason to fear that older men were grooming younger men by his own experiences.
mm,
As you know, I was growing up, and when my mom and dad discovered I struggled with same sex attraction when I was in high school because they found my gay pornography under my bed. And they asked me about it in college, again, in a very kind way. And they were very loving and kind. I never felt rejected by them. I'm not the only guy that has had that struggle in his life in our family. And our family is very loving and accepting. So, yeah, I've received a lot of goodness and care over time, not when I was growing up. And I've been honest with my mom and dad about that. And they've also been honest about how they could see that they had harmed me in particular ways and why it was difficult for me to even talk about being sexually abused as a 5-year-old. So
mm.
that's what we're after. We're not after we all harm one another,
Yep.
right? I've
It's
harmed my
about
children.
repair. It's not about getting it
What
right. It's about
what we're
repair.
looking for is repair of the ruptures and restoration of the relationship for one another. So
That's true. JP, glad you're here, man. Glad you made it. No, my dad does not listen to this show.
I don't think my
And it
dad does either.
and it's not because he doesn't love me or it's not because he's ashamed of the work. It's just my kids don't listen to this show either, and that's not for them. It's not a show for them. And I don't we don't create it for our children. We don't go and say, "Hey, don't watch this." We just say, "Hey, this is what I do, and if you want to check it out, check it out, but it's probably not something you're going to be into because they're not at the age or stage of really making that happen." So, all we can do
Do
is be
any kids want
ourselves.
to know do most kids want to know what their mom and dad are doing
They
sexually?
do
I don't
not.
think
They could care
I
less.
think, I think
Care
there's a
less.
built-in boundary there that
Yeah.
kids are like, you keep that to yourselves, parents.
Now, my mom used to stalk my Facebook page when I would put stuff on Facebook, and she'd like all these posts on pornography, and I'd be like, "Mom, you got to quit that. You got to
So,
take a step back." I mean, it's not when there's one like and it's your mom, it's a little I don't know. That was back in the
yeah,
day, so
yeah. My son, my oldest son is like that. He has like occasionally friends will comment on stuff that I share on my Facebook page, which is more therapy and
yeah,
recovery from complex trauma oriented.
yeah.
But they'll comment on my posts like they don't get it or they don't understand. My son will chime in and go, "I've told you guys we don't engage with my dad. We just simply read and move on."
So well said. Well said.
Yeah, very
Well,
funny.
guys, I hope you've enjoyed this buck naked episode. Smash that like button if you could. Promote this for YouTube. We want to try to get this conversation out to as many guys as we can. And check us out on wegotballspod.com. You can always do this. We had this happen this week. We had one guy who booked a consultation with both me and you. He was kind of like trying this thing out and riding the bike around. What's this whole Scott and Chris business? If you want to talk to both of us, we're more than happy to make time to talk to you and to be
I'm
able
not
to help
sure
you
I'm
any way we
fond
can.
of I'm not sure I like the concept of riding Scott and Chris around, but
Get on your bike.
but if you feel like
Try
you
us
need
out.
if you feel like you need to,
That's right. Give us a trial run. And we look
every
forward. We
part of
got
you is welcome.
Yeah, every part of you is welcome. We got 2 more episodes in this year. Check us out over the holidays. We are going to be here on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve coming up. So if you got some downtime, look forward to engage with you. We got some pretty cool topics, and I hope you'll check us out and continue the conversation right here on We Got Balls.
And you do too.